Are we ready? Oh, yes, we are. Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Assistant Secretary General, Deputy Undersecretary Schneck, Minister Ocampos, and Ms. Boucher. Good morning again, and welcome to this August event. Welcome to the Hall of the Americas and to this launch of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It is my distinct pleasure to be introducing the speakers for this session. And first up, I will introduce, to get this ball rolling, the Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Ambassador Nestor Mendez. And as Ambassador Mendez, just to let you know, my name is Ian Edwards, and I'm here at the Secretariat of the OAS. Ambassador Mendez.
Good morning, muy buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a la Organización de los Estados Americanos. Welcome to the OAS. His Excellency David Ocampos, Minister of Information and Communication Technology of Paraguay and Chairman of SICTE, J. Michael Daniels, Special Assistant to the U.S. President and Cybersecurity Coordinator, Ms. Phyllis Schneck, Deputy Undersecretary for Cybersecurity and Communications from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Jacqueline Boucher, Chief Online Safety Officer, Microsoft, President of the Board, National Security Alliance, permanent representatives, permanent observers, alternates, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you this morning to the Organization of American States and to the official launch of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a designation that has been recognized for some time in the United States, Canada, and Europe, and now throughout the Americas. As we all know, the advent of the internet has revolutionized how people interact with one another and with the world around them. Borderless and open to all, the internet allows for more equitable access to information and creates a space for dialogue that can bridge geographic, ethnic, and ideological lines. Through its use, citizens can connect with relatives and friends abroad, network their skills and interests, and start their own businesses. Greater and faster connectivity has also spurred innovation in commerce and education, increased efficiency in the global supply chains, and provided an easily accessible platform for the exchange of ideas and global entrepreneurship. These dynamics are especially felt in the Americas, where 1/7 of the world's population accounts for 20% of the world's internet users. Currently, over half of the people in the hemisphere are connected online. However, with the many advantages brought by the internet also come significant risks. Gaps in cybersecurity and inadequate protections against cybercrime leave people's personal and financial information vulnerable to cybercriminals, among other threats. Full awareness of cyber threats is needed at all stages, and that is the reason why the Organization of American States General Secretariat has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the Stop, Think, Connect campaign, and has also decided to adopt October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As part of the commitment of this organization to the spirit of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, this week we hosted several training sessions for Computer Emergency Response CERT officials, law enforcement and investigators, and officials charged with protecting critical infrastructure. In addition, during the upcoming days, we will launch a Cybersecurity Awareness Toolkit that will be available to our member states and the international community. We will also support initiatives undertaken by the Argentine Association of ICT Users, Usuaria, and the Brazilian Research Network, RNP, that will be focused on cybersecurity awareness. This month, Usuaria is organizing a series of activities in Colombia and Peru. In addition, the RNP already has experience in organizing cybersecurity awareness days, and we are glad to hear that they joined others in selecting October as the Cybersecurity Awareness Month as well. The cybersecurity program of the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security of the OAS has worked with its member states for over a decade to advance cybersecurity in the hemisphere. We do this by building national capacities to counter cyber threats. The program assists member states in developing national cybersecurity policies and forming computer security incident response teams, CSIRT, provides training to a variety of personnel from cyber incident response to law enforcement, and has published numerous reports and other documents on cybersecurity in the Americas. These efforts are made possible through South-South cooperation and with the technical knowledge of international experts and the generous financial support of our donors. Collaboration and shared responsibility will prove essential to the continued success of regional cybersecurity efforts going forward. Para finalizar, quiero reiterar nuestro placer en ayudar a celebrar el mes de octubre como el mes de cybersecurity awareness. The topics of today's sessions are sure to generate much discussion, and I hope that you're able to share your experiences and best practices with a view to continuing to increase cybersecurity awareness month in our hemisphere. Les deseo todo lo mejor, que su estadía en la OEA y en Washington sea productivo y placentero. Bienvenidos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary General. So there it is. He's laid out the scenario. We have some idea now as to how the OAS, as the premier hemispheric body, coordinates and its role, and so cybersecurity, of course, being one of those critical issues in which the OAS is involved. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce next Mr. J. Michael Daniel. He's a special assistant to the U.S. President, and he's a cybersecurity coordinator.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ian, for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here at the official launch of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'd like to thank the Organization of American States for organizing and hosting this event. It's an honor to spend some time with you this morning on this critical issue. In my role at the White House, I lead the U.S. government's development of national cybersecurity strategy and policy, and oversee the implementation of those policies on behalf of President Obama. For those of you who work in this space every day, you know that cybersecurity is broad, it's extremely complex, and it's very challenging. In fact, cybersecurity is perhaps one of the defining challenges that we face in the 21st century, a challenge that has become disturbingly normal over the last few years. Cyberspace has become a focal place for commerce, research, work, socializing, but it's also become a place that is characterized by intrusions, theft, invasion of privacy, ransomware, and denial of service attacks. As President Obama has noted, it is perhaps one of the great paradoxes of our information age that the very technologies that empower us in so many areas to do great good can also be used by our adversaries to inflict great harm. Now, unfortunately, this cyber threat is not static. It's growing and it's changing in a number of ways. In particular, the cyber threat is becoming more sophisticated as malicious actors effectively industrialize their hacking activities. It's no longer just the individual hacker that we are concerned about, but whole groups of them working together using the principles of division of labor and operating it like a business that we are concerned about. The threat is becoming less restrained as malicious actors are having a greater impact and are showing an increased willingness to be destructive in their activities, as we saw this past December with the attack on Sony Pictures Entertainment. And it's becoming more frequent as states increasingly integrate cyber capabilities into their foreign policy toolkit, and as criminal organizations realize the profits that are to be made there. But at the same time that the threat is increasing, our vulnerability is increasing. We keep hooking more and more stuff up to the internet, the so-called Internet of Things. And as processes become more automated, they become more vulnerable and become more connected to networks. It creates increased exposures that have never existed before. Because of all of this rapid change, I think that the international community is at a strategic inflection point. For over 40 years, we have been able to leverage cyberspace and the internet as a strategic asset. But because of the vulnerabilities that I just described, if we do not actually address some of the vexing problems that we face in cyberspace, we risk it becoming a strategic liability, enabling our adversaries to hold us at risk in this area in a way that they cannot in any other. And that is a future that we do not want. That's why National Cybersecurity Awareness Month is so important, as an opportunity for all of us to reflect upon the importance of protecting the global communications networks, our critical infrastructure, and our own personal data. And it's an opportunity to commit ourselves to redoubling our efforts to make cyberspace a safe and protected place for all who use it. So what are we in the United States doing about it? As an administration, we take this threat very seriously, and we've been working hard to achieve 3 strategic goals. How is it that we raise our cybersecurity defenses in both the short and the long term, in both the public and in the private sectors? How do we do a better job of disrupting, interrupting, and deterring our adversaries in cyberspace? And because we know that those first 2 efforts inevitably, some of the time, are going to fail, how do we actually improve our ability to respond to incidents and recover from them effectively? So we've been pursuing multiple lines of work in each of those strategic goals. We've been working very hard to protect our critical infrastructure by providing unique and actionable threat information to the private sector, enabling private sector companies to more effectively share information with the government, and incentivizing them to share information amongst themselves. We've been promoting the widespread use of cybersecurity best practices through the industry-built cybersecurity framework. And we've been creating forums for our critical infrastructure owners and operators to collaborate with the federal government on a range of issues, including preparedness and response. Of course, we're also working to secure the federal government's own networks. As many of you are aware, we in the federal government are now all too well aware, after the intrusion at OPM, the seriousness of the threat that we face. We see the systemic efforts by multiple malicious actors to penetrate our federal systems and to compromise sensitive government information. So we're working hard to shore up our defenses internal to the federal government and employ those same best practices that we've been discussing with the private sector on our own networks. As I mentioned, we are also working to how do we do a better job of disrupting and interrupting what the adversaries are doing. And it's no secret that more and more countries are starting to use cyber operations as a tool of statecraft. Therefore, to combat that threat, we actually have to think broadly about our response to malicious cyber activity. It's not just about using cyber to hit back in cyberspace, but about using all of the tools of national power that we have to disrupt what those adversaries are doing. And that means using our economic, our diplomatic, our law enforcement, our intelligence, and yes, sometimes our military capabilities if necessary. The cyber sanctions executive order that the President signed in April is a good example of using an economic tool to combat this threat. This EO is designed to impose costs on those who conduct certain types of malicious activity against the United States. But it's designed to be focused on those that pose a significant threat to us. And we will continue our efforts to create other policies like that enable us to use the full range of our capabilities to disrupt and deter what our adversaries are doing. We are also building our incident response capabilities. You'll hear from several people from DHS today, including Dr. Schneck, who will talk about, I suspect, some of what we're doing to enable a greater cooperation with our private sector, enable our private sector to know better what the federal government will do when you call us. And we'll do a better, and she will talk, I'm sure, about how we are building our capabilities to respond rapidly and effectively to incidents, as well as encouraging our private sector and the government to become more resilient across the board to all the kinds of threats we face. But that includes being more resilient to potential cyber attacks. Of course, in my time in this position, I have not worked on a single cyber issue that has been purely domestic. Almost every issue that I touch has some international component to it. As a result, one of the key parts of all of our work has to be our international engagement with our partners and allies, like those in the Americas here. It is only by working together that we can effectively deal with these issues that cross international boundaries so easily and so rapidly. So that's why we are trying to work also with our allies to build up greater levels of cooperation, to be able to take action when we need to in cyberspace. It is why we are working together to share best practices, to better connect our certs, so that we have better information about what is happening in cyberspace. And it's only by working together that we can build that broad picture that we need. We are also working together to protect the open, transparent, and interoperable internet, to make sure that this engine of growth that has driven so much benefit remains open and available to all. And of course, we are also looking towards the future. Our adversaries do not sit still. They are both opportunistic and they are persistent. And they do not have a bunch of lawyers constraining what they do and can and can't do. So as a result, they are very creative in what they do. And we need to also work to be creative and be able to better design our systems to be resilient from the beginning, to drive in security at a very inherent level, so that there aren't as many weaknesses for our adversaries to take advantage of. So I think overall what I can say is that this is an incredibly important area for all of us to continue focusing on, and I appreciate all of you showing up this morning to participate in this launch of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I think it is very exciting that this event is now getting as much international attention as it should, and it is something that affects everyone around the planet. So I look forward to hearing what some of the rest of the speakers have, and I hope you are able to learn a lot and share a lot and gain a lot of good ideas to take and work on in all of your different contexts. Thank you for letting me come and talk to you this morning. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Mr. Daniel. There you have it, the outline of what the U.S. government has been doing, especially from the White House, on this very crucial issue of cybersecurity and cybersecurity awareness. Mr. Daniel did underscore, actually, the whole paradox of this phenomenon, which I'm sure 30 years ago nobody thought that we would have been faced with this. It is my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, next presenter, Ms. Phyllis Schneck. She's the Deputy Undersecretary for Cybersecurity and Communications in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Ms. Schneck, you have the floor.
Good morning. I want to thank everybody for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today. I want to thank the Organization of American States for having us, for helping us launch National Cybersecurity Month. Welcome to October in an international platform. That's very, very important as we're all connected. I also want to thank a couple of my colleagues, Christina Dorvier from the Department of Homeland Security, who for 12 years has made National Cybersecurity Awareness Month possible, and thank Ms. Jordana Siegel, who runs our international operations for cybersecurity and communications, because then we're all connected, and without the awareness and our international operations, we would not be able to do our mission. Very big thanks to the National Cybersecurity Alliance, some of whom will be here today, for partnering with the department as far back as I can ever remember to make the awareness campaigns possible, to help our citizens, our governments, our world understand that our entire world is connected. Everything you touch and drive in and walk in and hold may someday have a computer, perhaps the things that you eat as well. So we want to make sure that as we go forward, we really focus on how do we protect those things. So my role in the Department of Homeland Security is on the defensive cyber mission in the part of the department that protects our federal civilian government here in the U.S., our federal agencies, as well as our private sector, to include, of course, our state and local. Erin Meehan is back there somewhere, who drives a lot of our efforts working with the individual states. Our industries fall into the private sector, of course, and our universities, our academia. Because again, focusing on the fact that we bring together as a department research under science and technology. We bring together the efforts of many different agencies within the Department of Homeland Security. So while I have the defensive cyber mission with a team of almost 2,000 people, we as the department, we are also to include FEMA and our Federal Emergency Management Association, our U.S. Secret Service, our Homeland Security investigations, our Customs and Border Patrol, intelligence and analysis, many, many. But as we come together, and what I talk about today is, as Michael Daniel mentioned, our focus on protection. How do we understand the cyber threat? How do we protect against it? How do we work 24/7 between people and machines? So I come from a computer science background, but I promise you my top priority, as I've said for the 2 years I've been in this role, is trust. Building trust among human beings, and that's the only way we protect our world, building trust between not just in the US, but all over the world. Our computer emergency response team talks to hundreds of other computer emergency response and readiness teams across the world. So I always tell the team, scientists always talk to scientists, and we are able to really build an integral infrastructure to protect that as we bring our data together and protect those people. But as we go forward, and as Michael mentioned, our adversary moves a lot more quickly. We face an adversary, right, that has no laws, has no lawyers, no offense. They have nothing they need to protect, no way of life, no privacy concerns. They have plenty of money in some cases, and they build nice relationships in the prisons. So they execute very, very quickly, and we've studied that. We have to protect our infrastructures, the technology we have before us, the very technology that takes countries and makes them economically sound. We have to protect that connectivity. We have to help people enjoy the toys, the connection, the electronics, the new technologies, and go forward and build that protection into it, and most importantly, build resilience into it. Everybody should assume if they have a computer at some point, it will be owned. Everybody should also assume that won't hurt them at some point. We will get it right so that it will bounce back, either by early detection or by it being able to heal itself. So as we look forward at the department, we have several different roles that all support our October, which I think every month should be National Cybersecurity Month. We'll focus on October. I'll focus a little bit on the event and then on what we do at the department. But this event is a milestone. It's our number 12. Again, we kick it off with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, so we do it in an international forum, and to us, that's a very important point to make. The National Cybersecurity Awareness Month has brought together the public and private sectors, as well as the general public, to create not just a secure, but again, a resilient environment. We can't keep bad guys out, but we can keep you from getting hurt if we build the trust among the people, among the governments, among the countries, and among the companies to transcend competitiveness, to transcend politics, and protect those infrastructures and those interests that we do share. Our Department of Homeland Security leads the effort to secure our cyberspace. Our mission is to enhance the security, the resilience, and the liability of our nation's cyber and communications infrastructure. And I would stress that cyber and communications infrastructure underpins our way of life. It helps us make our food. It helps us keep our food safe. It keeps the water running. It keeps those lights on. It keeps gas in your car. And as we look at all these different infrastructures, we have to study where that connectivity is, where the computers are, what instructions, because I will tell you, computers are not smart. They're fast. What computers do is they take an instruction, they pull it off a list, and they run with it. Our job is to, at some day, make that computer know at some point not to execute something bad. And if it does, to tell everybody else on the network very quickly. As we like to say at the department, see something, say something. We want to take that in cybersecurity and put that into machine speed. So if one part of the network senses something bad or something bad happens, the rest of the network can light up with that, and that's the speed of machines working to protect machines, instead of allowing the adversaries to use the speed of machines. With our Stop, Think, Connect campaign, I've seen this as STC, it's Stop, Think, Connect. This is our 5-year birthday for that, and it means a lot. It means when everybody goes to quick open the file, because it's really cool, it comes up on the new phones that are really fast and colorful. or somebody sent you a link and you've just got to see it, think about it, please, first. A lot of times there are people out there, organizations out there that are watching that know how to get you to open a file. And when you open a file, instructions have actually come to your machine and are running on your machine. So somebody else's instructions are now running on your machine. You want to make sure before you set that process off, you know exactly where it came from. Never, ever click on a link that came from an organization that said click here. Most organizations will not send you a link anymore because of this. So you type it in. So if you remember nothing else today, stop, think before you connect. Even pictures, even files, even if it looks like it's from a family member, just think about it a little bit first. There are folks out there that look, these are the bad guys, they're really, really good. They're looking at what might get you to open a file because they want access, in many cases to your home machine, because in many cases that's a way to get to your work machine, or it's a way to get to your personal finances. So personally and as an organization, we believe that Stop, Think, Connect is not just a logo. That needs to be a way of life, just like you look both ways before you cross the street. It's very, very important. The other big point about this month, and every month, is cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. Key point in that is if one point at the internet is not secure, that's a threat to everybody else. We hear many stories about breaches and intrusions, and you'll hear more. However, every point in the internet that we can make stronger, whether it's because we heard something from a person or we sent instructions to a machine at machine speed, is one bit safer that our entire network gets. The root of the word network is net, so think of a big net, and if there's a hole in one part of it, the rest of it's not as strong. So we all support this global internet that supports our work, our economy, our families, our safety, and a big point for me coming from the Department of Homeland Security, where our secretary always tells us cybersecurity is a part of Homeland Security. This is how we can enjoy the future of electronic connectivity, by protecting it, by keeping it fun, not running away from it, but by understanding it and protecting it. So when we look at why my team comes to work every day and sometimes 24/7, it's because there are a lot of adversaries out there looking to get access to our federal agencies, looking to get access to our state and local governments, our companies, our universities. They want personal information, as you've seen on the news. They want healthcare information. They want intellectual property. And in some cases, as we've seen, they want to access the very systems that control the flow of electricity or the flow of water, which can affect physical infrastructure. So as we look at this, again, we focus on people and on machines. On the people side, we build partnerships. We enable companies to come into the room and transcend competitive boundaries and talk about actual science. So we bring the scientists into the room to talk about vulnerabilities. It's all voluntary. They don't have to talk about anything they don't want to share, but they're able to, if they've detected something on their network or if they've discovered something new, to put it out in the community in a controlled way where everyone can be protected. And also, very importantly, those companies can still make money. It's very, very important. It's an economic issue. We also have we have a 24/7 Watch Operations Center called the National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center. One acronym today, the NCIC, because that's a long word. But that is 24/7, where we have the big screens that show our scientists and our operators and our incident responders what agencies right now might be receiving traffic from someone that we think is bad. Where are we blocking bad traffic? If we block bad traffic from one agency, should we now tell other agencies, hey, they saw this over there, because we can see that bird's eye view from the Watch Center, and we do this. We're creating programs that help block bad things, help see agencies when they don't know that they're doing it, because you really don't. Call out to bad places. That's a sign that you're sending your intellectual property out to another planet. We can then take that data and share that data with the private sector and say, please be careful of this. We're seeing this types of behavior. We're seeing this type of traffic volume. And something I think we do very well is work with our privacy and civil liberties experts. And this is important. I'm not sure there's ever been a harder time in our environment to share a lot of information and put it together. But by working very closely and publishing everything that we do and being absolutely transparent about every step of the way, we are able to gather enough information so that we can create a picture. Sometimes I call it a weather map, sometimes I call it connecting the dots, but we can put that puzzle together and share it with everyone. And there's never been a more urgent time to do that, but again, doing it right with the privacy and civil liberties experts. And that is also very much an international effort. So as we look at how we protect our federal agencies and look at the traffic trying to go in and where they try to connect out, share that back out with the private sector, we also connect up with programs that give the very best of private sector tools, because government can't build everything. The private sector builds incredible things. They build great technology, and we're leveraging the best of that and making it affordable to put into our government agencies for two big reasons, many reasons, but I'll name two. One is it protects the agencies better, and two is it enables each agency to see continuously who is trying to access my network, where am I vulnerable, what patches might not have been issued. And instead of creating a book at the end of every year that says how secure you were yesterday, we give them like a dashboard, like the dashboard in your car, how much gas is left, how fast are you going. We give every agency a picture, and then we back at the NCIC at the Watch Center with all the scientists watching that, as well as our incident responders. They can understand the data if they have to go in and fix an intrusion, as well as sharing that out with our private sector colleagues. We have private sector partners that can also sit on the watch floor. We can create the bigger dashboard of what's happening across all of those agencies. And again, through machine speed sharing that we're just now kicking off, inform machines all over the world. This administration has given us some great tools, one of which is an information sharing and analysis organization. So instead of being limited to bringing groups of people together to share information only by the sectors, which might be electricity or gas and oil or water or emergency services, any group of people that forms a trusted organization can form one of these organizations. It will be accredited by national standards, international standards, excuse me, and they'll be able to share information with our Watch Center and share it out to all those that they think need it. So if you can imagine the power of the speed of computing now being used to virtually inoculate and inform instead of the power of the speed of computing being used to harm. So this puts our National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center at the center of gathering that information. We call it indicators. It's machine understanding of cyber threat. We strip the private information. We work very closely with a lot of lawyers, a lot of policymakers, a lot of privacy experts, and a lot of civil liberties experts every day. We're able to push out information in real time, and we're able to build an infrastructure where very soon we'll be able to receive it. So when I said you'll learn about more intrusions very soon, that means as we get this going as a world, I believe we'll start to see more intrusions. It doesn't mean that nobody was doing their job. It means that this is stuff we hadn't seen before. And as these indicators start to propagate, we're going to light up our network and get more educated. And at the center of that is our National Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Center. And when President Obama came and visited the team, he said that this is where that will sit. And we consider that a huge responsibility and a huge honor, and we will get that right. When we look at how we protect the private sector, we're also able to use government information to protect the private sector, working with the service providers. We also take a lot of care in looking at how are we going to work and how do we work with the small to medium businesses, right? That's 99%, at least in the US, of the business infrastructure. And in many cases, financially, a company of a smaller size can't afford a very large cybersecurity staff. So we study what's the scale of how to protect every business, because it's a shared responsibility. And big business buys products from smaller business. This is part of the ecosystem. So we take a large responsibility in finding the ways, finding the scale, and leveraging the innovation of the private sector to be able to bring that together and protect everyone. And when you build a large ecosystem, as we're doing, you generate more awareness, more situational awareness that benefits everyone. So we want to leverage everyone's knowledge, leverage the speed of machines, and most of all, leverage the trust. The people here today, the people that spend their time, that have built this community across the world, leverage what you can build, what you will build in the future, to protect what we will have tomorrow, to be able to enjoy it, and to look at October as a time to really get out there and spread the message. But we truly believe at the Department of Homeland Security that every month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And as you look at technology, help us do two things. Help us protect what we have now, and in some cases that means going backwards and patching things. But think about as you design things in the future, whether it's policy or whether it's a computer or a new toy or a new car, think about how you're going to protect that, preserve privacy and civil liberties, preserve all the things that make each country unique while working together as a connected world. So I thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for having us, and happy October, the 12th National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I appreciate all that you do for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schneck. Very timely reminder there about the shared responsibility and the fact that it is every month that really is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. October is the month where you choose to renew and sort of take stock to see how to proceed with this shared responsibility. Thank you again. Next up, we have His Excellency David Ocampos. He's the Minister of Information and Communications Technology of Paraguay, and he's chair of the CICTE, which is the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism. Excellency.
Tengan ustedes muy buenos días. Les saludo aquí a la mesa, ¿cómo serían los anfitriones? La señora Jacqueline, Michelle, Philips. Y bueno, y a todos ustedes, realmente que vienen de diversos puntos de Latinoamérica, el Caribe. Y sobre todo, en esta ocasión les felicito a los organizadores, en primer lugar por la temática, y en segundo lugar por traer tantas autoridades y especialistas en el tema del sector privado, sector público, porque de eso se trata. Este es un tema complejo, un ecosistema complejo que a los países nos cuesta entender y organizar, mismo desde el punto de vista de definir de qué se trata esto. Muchos decimos que es solo delitos informáticos, cuando no es solamente delitos informáticos o no solo combatir delitos informáticos, sino que se trata más de incluso de ir más allá y preocuparnos de la robustez y de la disponibilidad de todos los sistemas de infraestructura, de hardware, de software, de las redes. Y eso llevado a un plano nacional de poder organizar eso, no es muy obvio. Lo primero que se nos ocurre a los países es tener un CERT. Y muchas veces un CERT no tiene la fuerza suficiente a nivel nacional para poder articular y organizar todo este ecosistema y sentarle a la mesa a diversos actores del sector privado, operadores de redes, la industria, el sector financiero. Son sectores totalmente que no son compatibles, difícil de llevarlo a la mesa. Y ni qué decir, practicar en Latinoamérica la triple hélice, gobierno, sociedad civil, academia y sector privado. Nos cuesta mucho. Entonces, he ahí el aporte de este tipo de jornadas, el esfuerzo que viene haciendo el CICTE para la formación y la capacitación de los recursos humanos. Talleres, seminarios, consultorías para ayudarle a los países a iniciar con este proceso. Esto no es un producto que compramos y plasmamos en la agenda digital de los países. Es un proceso gradual de probablemente solamente la mitad de los países de Latinoamérica tienen conformado un CERT. El resto aún no lo tiene. Menos de la mitad probablemente tiene armonizado su sistema legal en materia de delitos informáticos o la tipificación de los nuevos hechos punibles en materia de delitos informáticos. Entonces, es ahí donde esta tarea de cooperación con los países en Latinoamérica no solamente ha llegado a la conformación de estos talleres de capacitación para compartir experiencias entre los especialistas, sino también estamos pensando, y algunos países estamos entrando justamente en plantear instancias supranacionales de coordinación de todo este ecosistema de ciberseguridad a través de una agenda o un plan nacional de ciberseguridad. Porque sabemos que es necesario una coordinación nacional donde podamos articular y sentar a la mesa a estos diferentes actores del ecosistema y en ese sentido implica el relevamiento de, de todos los sistemas, de todas las infraestructuras críticas, las bases de datos críticas. Obviamente el plan de capacitación y certificaciones de personas, de infraestructuras y de procesos en materia de seguridad. Sin duda, el fortalecimiento de los CERT, que ya todos lo saben, y también el proceso de seguimiento a los delitos, articulando con el sistema legal, también muy importante. Este proceso creo que tiene diferentes ritmos según la situación de cada país y eso es lo que hemos estado haciendo entre todos. Hay muchos desafíos todavía, fuera de lo que es la articulación de un plan nacional de ciberseguridad en los diversos países de Latinoamérica. Tenemos otros retos, como lo que se refiere a, por ejemplo, la incorporación de la popularización de la firma digital y el reconocimiento entre los Estados partes del marco legal y de la validez jurídica de una firma digital. Probablemente eso lo vamos a hacer en la medida que todos los países tengan una identificación o un smart card en el sistema del registro civil de todos los países. Tenemos todavía desafíos como la frontera o el balance entre lo que es los derechos humanos y la privacidad de las personas y la necesidad de dejar evidencias en materia de proseguir las causas penales, como la retención de metadatos. Es una polémica que todavía no quedó claro en la posición y de postura que tenemos que adoptar los diversos países. Obviamente, la armonización del sistema penal y de los delitos informáticos. Tenemos una sarta de delitos que sabemos que son delitos. El robo, acceso indebido a datos, sabotaje informático, contenidos ilegales, pornografía infantil. Pero hay otras fronteras, otros hechos que probablemente algunos lo quieran llevar al plano legal, como el bullying, sexting, obviamente el spam. Pero entonces son armonizaciones que tenemos que lograr entre los países y cada uno, que quede claro que este delito es igual aquí o en cualquier país de Latinoamérica. Y sobre todo en los bloques que estamos más cercanos y podemos trabajar más de cerca. Espero que realmente en estos encuentros podamos ir avanzando en ciertas cosas, sobre todo porque hay muchos expertos de la industria, de las agencias gubernamentales, del sector privado. Este es una tarea colaborativa antes que nada. Es un partido que no podemos jugar solos. Jugar solos implica un desbalance muy grande con relación a los atacantes. Defender una red es mucho más difícil que atacar. Atacar es muy fácil. En el anonimato se puede atacar múltiples destinos. Pero intentar defender una red, no digo ni al 100%, al 98%, es muy difícil y muchas veces implica muchos recursos y muchas capacidades a nivel de recursos humanos e institucionales. Por eso espero que lo aprovechen, que realmente puedan tejer el networking de conocimiento entre todos ustedes. Y les felicito a los organizadores del encuentro por la agenda y por la calidad de los disertantes que se vienen. Seguramente a la tarde los organizadores, los amigos de Usuaria y los organizadores del CICTE, encabezado con Alfred, Belisario, Pablo, Gonzalo, Bárbara y todo el equipo que lo viene haciendo muy bien esta cooperación a nivel de los Estados partes de Latinoamérica. Que lo disfruten, que aprovechen. Buen día.
Y muchas gracias, señor ministro, por compartir con nosotros esos conceptos en cuanto a las armonizaciones y esas cuestiones que hay que considerar para este empeño de ciberseguridad. Thank you again, Minister. Just before we proceed, just to apologize for the Assistant Secretary General. He had to attend to other matters just now, so I'm sure he'll be joining you later on in the program throughout the day. Next up, we have the honor of hearing from, we've had the public sector presentations just now. Now we hear from the private sector perspective in the person of Ms. Jacqueline Boucher. She is the Chief Online Safety Officer, Microsoft, and President of the Board of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Ms. Boucher.
Thank you, Ian. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Boucher, the Chief Online Safety Officer at Microsoft Corporation, based in Redmond, Washington. And I'm here today representing the board of the National Cybersecurity Alliance. That group, along with the Department of Homeland Security, are the founders of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month in the U.S., and we are all ardent proponents of global cooperation around awareness raising about cyber safety and security. On behalf of the NCSA, welcome to the first ever international launch of Cybersecurity Awareness Month and an event to mark the 5-year milestone of Stop, Think, Connect. I would like to thank OAS for organizing and hosting today's launch. OAS has shown tremendous leadership encouraging the adoption of Stop, Think, Connect and Cybersecurity Awareness Month in Latin America and across the Caribbean. Cybersecurity Awareness Month is also being celebrated today in the European Union, organized by ENISA, as well as Canada and Australia. So we can easily envision that a few years from now, Cybersecurity Awareness Month will truly be a global event. It's hard to believe, but at the national level, it was just 5 years ago today that we all met in Microsoft's backyard in Seattle, Washington, for the launch of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month 2010. At that time, the Department of Homeland Security, the White House, NCSA, and the Anti-Phishing Working Group announced and unveiled Stop, Think, Connect, a simple, action-oriented reminder to help all of us stay safer and more secure online every day. A half-decade young, Stop, Think, Connect is the signature awareness-raising campaign for the National Cybersecurity Alliance, for the Department of Homeland Security, and a number of founding corporations and organizations, including Microsoft. I speak from personal experience when I say that the Stop, Think, Connect undertaking was nothing short of monumental. It brought together more than 30 separate entities from the public and private sectors to agree a single, unifying, evidence-based message to encourage the public to stay safer online. The process itself took more than 16 months, and Stop, Think, Connect, in my opinion, now stands as a shining example of what public-private partnerships can achieve when the group is motivated, focused, and working toward a common goal. In the months that followed, members of the Stop, Think, Connect coalition remained committed to putting the STC message in front of the American people, and the Department of Homeland Security, thank you again, helped to infuse it throughout the federal government. A half-decade later, Stop, Think, Connect is now used by more than 260 partners, including countries, companies, and organizations, to raise awareness of online safety and security among citizens, employees, and associates. To continue building on that momentum, last year, NCSA and the Anti-Phishing Working Group made a concerted effort to expand Stop, Think, Connect by holding an international gathering at Microsoft's office in Paris. Over 2 days, some 40 representatives from 13 different countries took part in information and best practice sharing and agreed to coordinate efforts going forward. In the US, today data show that people know there is a cyber awareness campaign, and about 4 in 10 people know that they have heard of Stop, Think, Connect. In a pretty short period of time, that's pretty good progress, but more needs to be done. So if you haven't already done so, please join the Stop, Think, Connect campaign at stopthinkconnect.org. It's free, and I trust that you'll find the information there at that website very informative and very valuable. At the individual level, the Evergreen Security Month theme of Our Shared Responsibility refers to the ongoing work that each of us must do to strengthen our own individual portion of cyberspace. Because when it comes to helping to secure the internet, no individual, corporation, or government entity is solely responsible or even capable. The steps that we take may differ based on our personal and professional stations. That said, if each of us does our part, whether it be implementing stronger security measures, raising awareness of risks, educating youth, or something else entirely, together we can create a more resilient, global digital world. As the month unfolds, we'll see events and activities by companies and organizations, in classrooms, by local and state governments, and civic and nonprofit groups. I encourage you to join as many as possible and to exploit those weekly themes that appeal to you the most. At National Cybersecurity Alliance, we gauge success of the month of October less by what we do as an entity and more by the impact of what we all do collectively. You are trusted leaders in your communities and organizations. Your neighbors and your colleagues respect and value what you say. So be leaders this month, and as others have said, every month, and work to educate everyone around you about staying safer and more secure online. Thank you again to DHS and the OAS for your leadership and dedication to a safer, more secure, and trusted internet. And thank you to all of you for having me speak with you here today. And here's to an exciting and fruitful international CSAM 2015.
And thank you, Ms. Boucher, and it is hoped that by the time we get to look at Cybersecurity Month next year, the field would even be much wider. Thank you. We're going to be, now that Cybersecurity Month has been launched for this year, we're going to move right into the next session, which is a panel discussion, public-private partnerships to promote cybersecurity awareness. So as the speakers from this session take their seats, I shall invite the participants in the panel to come forward. Santiago Paz, he is the Director of Cybersecurity Agency for E-Government and Information Society. Oliver Gonzalez, General Director of Cybersecurity, Federal Police of Mexico. Tom Kellerman, Chief Cybersecurity Officer with Trend Micro. And this session will be moderated by Chris Boyer, or is that Boyer, who is the Assistant Vice President for Public Policy at AT&T Services, Inc. So do we have everybody in now? So since Mr. Boyer will be moderating, I shall hand over to you, sir. With pleasure. So do you want to stay there? Yeah, I'll stay here. So shall we have microphones for the microphones? So everybody's mic'd up now.
Is that coming through? Yeah, there it goes.
You're still waiting for your mic. Okay, so we're still waiting for microphones for two people, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it is my pleasure to hand over to Mr. Boyer, Chris Boyer, who will moderate this session.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here today with the Organization of American States, talk about cybersecurity. I'm Chris Boyer, and I work for AT&T, but I also have the honor of serving on the NCSA Board of Directors and have been working with the organization for well over 6 years now. And one of the main goals of NCSA has been to build strong public-private partnerships to create and implement a broad-reaching education and awareness efforts. And so what this panel is focused on is exactly that, is how do we build public-private partnerships, why are they important, and what's their role in cybersecurity and in particular in awareness campaigns. And so I kind of wanted to start the discussion here just by asking the panelists kind of a general question, you know, that both the government and the private sector talk a lot about the value of public-private partnerships in cybersecurity as an important part of the solution. And so I wanted to get the panelists' thoughts on, generally, what does it take to create a strong public-private partnership, and are there any barriers between the way government, industry, and NGOs, work to create those private partnerships? Any barriers that make it even harder? So with that, kind of start the conversation there. You probably didn't catch it, right? Did you? Okay, there you go.
I'm sorry, I'm going to speak in Spanish. It's okay. Yo soy Santiago Paz, soy el director de ciberseguridad de la Agencia de Gobierno Electrónico y Sociedad de Información de Uruguay. Justamente nosotros, nuestra misión en Uruguay es el desarrollo de las tecnologías de la información y con el propósito de conseguir beneficios para los uruguayos, de los que todos estamos acostumbrados a usar la tecnología, ya sea en nuestros teléfonos, nuestra computadora, nuestro auto, está en todo. Los aspectos de ciberseguridad particularmente, o el riesgo intrínseco del uso de tecnología, es una de nuestras responsabilidades mantenerlo de una manera adecuada. Particularmente creo que el manejo de esos riesgos no tiene por qué manejarse como público o privado, es responsabilidad de todos. Partiendo de esa base de que manejar el riesgo intrínseco del uso de tecnologías, que es una responsabilidad de todos, y yendo a la pregunta particularmente de cuáles son los obstáculos que podemos llegar a encontrar en las alianzas público-privadas, y quizás los obstáculos son justamente los obstáculos formales, el poder establecer acuerdos, contratos del punto de vista formal. Sin embargo, y particularmente en el caso de Uruguay, la cooperación con la que trabajamos con el sector privado, con el sector académico y con el gobierno es altísima. Nosotros trabajamos particularmente con todo el sector de telecomunicaciones, con todos los ISPs, con todo el sector financiero, con el sector industrial, desarrollador de tecnología, de forma muy amplia y muy fluida. Este año, por primera vez en Uruguay, se generó un laboratorio que se llama ICT4B, que es ICT for Verticals, que es el primer laboratorio de cooperación público-privado para el desarrollo de tecnologías, de tecnologías y comunicaciones y de innovación que se da en el país. Es un laboratorio que tiene un fondo de cerca de $1,5 millones y es la primera experiencia que se está haciendo de cooperación público-privado de forma directa, con fondos que son compartidos entre público-privados en el ambiente de tecnología. ¿Qué es lo que estamos haciendo desde el punto de vista de public awareness? En eso es el sector financiero. Ese es nuestro gran aliado. El sector financiero, actualmente estamos trabajando con el sector financiero para trabajar en la sensibilización del uso de tecnologías asociado a la parte financiera. Uruguay está pasando por un proceso de bancarización y un proceso donde se quiere la inclusión financiera del 100% de los uruguayos y, como decía al principio, todo el uso de tecnología tiene cierto riesgo intrínseco. Todos los beneficios que tiene tener una población 100% bancarizada con uso de pago electrónico tiene también cierto riesgo. Con ellos estamos trabajando en lo que es la parte de sensibilización. Ellos son el canal a cada uno de nuestros clientes para poder acercar mensajes de sensibilización del uso responsable de las tecnologías asociado al sector financiero. Gracias.
So Trend Micro collaborates heavily with the US CERT and OAS and SIGDE. And I think there are some challenges we need to grasp to appreciate how the environment has changed. And to do that, we need to appreciate the infrastructures of the adversary. The adversary has three infrastructures in this economy of scale that is the dark web. One infrastructure is this hacking phenomenon that we discuss consistently, and yet the information we share is truly based on the manifestation of hacking. It's the malware, the command and control, and in fact it's lacking a discussion of the lateral movement or the modus operandi or the secondary infections that are occurring widely in our environments. Secondarily, the infrastructure of the adversary is based upon bulletproof hosts, which are the cyber criminal hideouts in the dark web that facilitate the ephemeral distribution of goods and services. And insufficient sharing is being done vis-a-vis where those bulletproof hosts are, how are they facilitating the actions of the adversary, how can that enable the adversary, how can we as a collective community limit the systemic risk by shutting those down. And then lastly, there's the third leg of the stool that is infrastructure's provision for the hackers, and that's the anonymous payment systems. Insufficient attention has been paid to the use of these anonymous payment systems, whether they be mechanisms like digital currencies et al., that are facilitating the transfer of wealth away from our organizations into this underground economy. More needs to be done in this area as well. My last point is technically, we are spending too much time discussing what's happening at the perimeter. There's a contagion occurring now of secondary infections that we're not appreciative of because we're not understanding of the aquatic nature of the environment, of how many organizations that were compromised last year are compromised again today. I'll give you one stat from Trend Micro. 90% of the targeted attacks that we see on our victim clients, the initial payload or malware is only used against one host. And the command and control goes down within an hour. 60% of the time. This aligns with the study that we conducted with SIGTE on cybersecurity in the Americas that noted out of our 500 plus critical infrastructure respondents that 44% of them dealt with delete and destroy destructive attacks this year. So Sony wasn't alone. And so with that, I think we need to improve, even though in the spirit of cooperation, I appreciate our spirit of compromise, our necessity to do public-private partnerships. We need to evolve with the adversary to deal with this threat.
Gracias, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Oliver González, yo soy el director general de ciberseguridad del CERT MX de la Policía Federal en México. Cuando me comentó Belisario que me iba a invitar a participar en este panel, que tiene que ver con crear conciencia para colaborar entre el ámbito público y privado, me sentí realmente halagado y muy emocionado de compartir con ustedes. Yo lo que quiero comentar en este primer bloque es que no se puede entender atender el problema de la ciberseguridad sin una alianza público-privada. Todo el mundo hemos comentado en estas sesiones que la ciberseguridad es un tema de naturaleza global y de responsabilidad compartida. Entonces, es fundamental, necesario la alianza. Ahora, para poder llegar a todos los sectores involucrados, necesitamos hablar los diferentes lenguajes que utilizan cada uno de estos. Por ejemplo, el sector legislativo, el sector educativo, el sector financiero. A cada uno de ellos les beneficia las TICs, pero también les afecta de una u otra forma. Entonces yo creo que es muy importante el crear una estrategia donde se identifiquen a todos los involucrados en el tema de ciberseguridad, todos los sectores involucrados, y generar datos duros, datos estadísticos que permitan la implementación de una política pública a nivel de Estado y que motive la colaboración de cada uno de estos sectores. Un sector importantísimo es los proveedores de servicios, tanto del Internet en sí como los proveedores de servicios en Internet, que muchas veces nosotros los que trabajamos en una institución de seguridad pública, cuando tenemos un caso y que no más solamente tenemos un correo o una dirección IP, pues forzosamente necesitamos la colaboración. Pero luego entonces empezamos a cuestionarnos hasta dónde podemos colaborar por el tema de lo público y lo privado. ¿Sí? O sea, qué información sí podemos compartir y qué información no podemos compartir. Entonces, pues obviamente entran las legislaciones en materia de protección de datos personales, en materia de la protección de la vida privada, y empieza una discusión interesante, porque efectivamente hay que proteger la vida privada, pero por otro lado también pues tenemos que tener información para poder actuar. Entonces es un tema fundamental, yo creo, para poder crear esta concientización. Y bueno, yo creo que ahorita vamos a empezar a hablar más acerca del tema, es lo que quería colaborar en esta primera parte.
Thank you very much, and I certainly agree that the privacy issues are certainly important as we talk about security. I know I'm moderating today, but I want to give one thought on why public-private partnerships are important, and having spent a lot of time working with NCSA, when you think about awareness, getting the word out on awareness is a major issue, and it's not something that government can do alone. It's not something the private sector can do alone. And I think that from a company standpoint, it's important for us that we try to help our customers stay safe online. We want our customers to have a safe experience when they use the internet, and awareness is a key component of that. So when we launched Stop Think Connect back in 2009, 2010 timeframe and had those initial conversations, a lot of the when I was as part of the NCSA board, there was a lot of conversation amongst the companies that are members of NCSA, whether it's AT&T, whether it's Microsoft and others. There's a lot of conversation about how we want people to use the internet and feel like they can use those services, but also be safe. And so the whole concept was, can we coalesce around a single message that people will pay attention to and listen to, instead of having kind of bifurcated efforts amongst all the companies. And I think that by pulling those resources together, we have the best opportunity to reach a broad audience. If you have both government and the private sector working together, they're talking to individuals, the government's reaching out to individuals, so you create that critical mass to actually try to get people's attention. And the last point I'll make there is that it takes a long time to change behavior. So when we talk about things like the Stop Think Connect campaign, you're talking about a multi-year, multi-decade process of educating people about how to use the internet. And so I think that by having the private sector and public sector working together, you have the best opportunity to really move that forward, as opposed to individuals to kind of doing their own thing. So my thoughts on why it's important. Kind of moving along to the next question I had on here. From Uruguay's perspective, Santiago, I know I had seen some things on there that you guys had talked to the anti-phishing working group and had some conversations about doing something along the lines of Stop Think Connect. And can you talk a little bit about what kind of awareness is going on in Uruguay and how you are promoting cybersecurity awareness in the country?
Sí, nosotros firmamos el acuerdo con Stop Think Connect como campaña. Y particularmente, y voy a ser muy honesto, nosotros hicimos un análisis con nuestros equipos de comunicaciones respecto a la versión en español de Stop Think Connect, y llegamos a la generación de un mensaje que se llama Seguro te conectás, que es un mensaje que tiene un juego de palabras que es vas a estar, ¿no? Es seguro te vas a conectar, pero además es conectate de forma segura. Iniciamos esta campaña la iniciamos a fines de 2013, donde generamos, basados en el modelo que aprendimos de Stop Think Connect, de un mensaje con un lenguaje simple, de un mensaje positivo, estimulando justamente, no generando paranoia, sino estimulando el uso de las tecnologías, y un lenguaje común. Establecimos una campaña donde en diversos canales, tanto en lo que es vía pública, en lo que es radio, en lo que prensa escrita, lanzamos esta campaña en campañas por redes sociales, etcétera, para sensibilizar. Eso lo hicimos durante estos últimos años, y hoy particularmente en lo que estamos trabajando es en llegar al usuario a través del canal que él hace uso de la tecnología. ¿Qué quiero decir con esto? Hay básicamente dos grandes canales que detectamos. Son los ISP. El ISP, el usuario contrata una conexión de internet o en su smartphone o en donde sea, y ese, entendemos, es un canal muy bueno para llegar al usuario con un mensaje de sensibilización, es decir, a través del ISP, donde él ya tiene un contrato y un vínculo establecido con el ISP. Y el otro canal con el que detectamos y con el que estamos trabajando es el sector financiero, credit cards, cuentas bancarias, etcétera, donde él ya tiene un vínculo establecido con la institución financiera y hace uso de transacciones electrónicas, y entendemos que es un canal también. Este giro, nosotros lo que apuntamos es a tener una segmentación mucho más fina. Es decir, la campaña pública, donde ponemos en vía pública un afiche o damos un mensaje en un programa de radio, es extremadamente masivo, el segmento que manejamos es muy amplio, y ahora lo que queremos es enfocarnos en los usuarios, en los power users de determinadas tecnologías, particularmente smartphones y pagos electrónicos. ¿Quedó claro? It's okay?
No, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it's great that you are doing a campaign and taking the model from Stop Think Connect and applying it to what works best in your country is kind of, I think, what everybody was hoping would happen. So I think it's excellent. Tom, I saw that you had mentioned, I think, in your previous comments, some of the report that Trend put out about security, and I saw that you had put out a report about cybersecurity in Latin America, and that one of the recommendations was that there needs to be raising awareness of safe cyber habits was one of the things that Trend had pointed out in the report. And so what role do you think that public-private partnerships could play there in doing that and kind of raising awareness around cybersecurity?
So the report was produced in conjunction with SICTE. We couldn't have done it without SICTE. And that's why there was such an honest response from the victims, per se, on the reality of the threat. Again, I think we need to begin to elevate the strategic nature of our conversation. It's one thing to ask users not to become victims by manifesting silly behaviors. It's another, though, that I think users need additional education, and super users, people who own and operate infrastructures, on the fact that perimeter defense is no longer effective, or that mobile devices are vulnerable to attack now, and you need to be more safe when you operate with these devices in such fashion. So I think the number one lesson from the report was that the environment has become more hostile and more punitive. Given that reality, I think there are three sectors in Latin America and the Western Hemisphere, regardless of our national priorities or strategic and historical issues with our neighbors. I think there are three sectors that there could be cross-collaboration on. Obviously, telecommunications, secondarily, transportation, and thirdly, finance. I think there are systemic risks that now can exist within these sectors, and there should be greater information sharing as it relates to phenomenon, specifically to the modus operandi and lateral movement of significant actor groups that are targeting the region. We're well aware of the fact that most of the true cyber attack capabilities in the region are coming out of 4 or 5 bulletproof host cyber crime havens in the region. What can we do collectively to disrupt, as was stated earlier, these ecosystems?
Great, thank you. And then Oliver, I wanted to ask you a little bit, when I was doing some research for the panel, I had seen that the federal police in Mexico had signed a partnership with Microsoft and were taking a variety of actions to address kind of fraud and cybercrime in Mexico. And so I thought that was a good example of public-private partnership as well. So could you comment a little bit about what Mexico's doing there in terms of cybercrime and how working with the private sector plays into that?
Sí, en la Policía Federal, a nivel de la institución como tal, que depende de la Secretaría de Gobernación y de la Comisión Nacional de Seguridad, se estableció una estrategia de ciberseguridad con un enfoque, desde luego por nuestro quehacer día a día, con un enfoque directo a la ciudadanía. Un tema de ciberseguridad para el ciudadano, ciberseguridad para la gente. Entonces, uno de los rubros principales que tiene esta estrategia de ciberseguridad es la prevención. En ese sentido, nosotros firmamos un convenio con Microsoft para compartir información que nos sirve, desde luego respetando todas las leyes de protección de datos personales, que nos sirve para nutrir más la información que recibimos en el CERT para identificar actividades maliciosas en la red, pero también para poder compartir información que nos sirva en las investigaciones que realizamos. Así también hemos firmado convenios con algunas otras organizaciones dentro del país, por ejemplo con el DIF, que es el Desarrollo Integral de la Familia, con la Secretaría de Educación Pública, que nos permite acercarnos y promover el uso responsable del Internet. Tenemos una campaña que se llama Un Día con tu Policía Federal, donde asistimos a todas las ciudades del país todas las divisiones que conforman la Policía Federal, en específico la División Científica, que es donde estoy adscrito, donde está adscrito el CERT, y tenemos este nivel de proximidad con la ciudadanía. Ponemos juegos didácticos para que los niños aprendan jugando el uso responsable de las tecnologías y del Internet. Asistimos a escuelas a dar información. Tenemos un centro de atención ciudadana donde también atendemos el tema de los delitos cibernéticos y orientamos a la ciudadanía por medio de telefonía y también por correo electrónico. Básicamente estamos sumamente preocupados por seguir fortaleciendo estas alianzas público-privadas, y estamos también muy de la mano con la Asociación de Bancos de México, que es la asociación que agremia a todas las instituciones financieras, y estamos generando este ambiente de confianza. Nosotros nos abrimos con ellos, los invitamos a nuestras instalaciones, les hacemos ver cuál es el nivel de profesionalismo y de responsabilidad que tenemos en la institución en la materia, que nos conozcan, que vean que en la División Científica, en el CERT, estamos personal capacitado, gente que tiene niveles de estudio muy importantes y que recibe capacitación, gente que pasa por controles de confianza constantemente desde su ingreso y para su permanencia. Todo ese tipo de actividades generan confianza hacia estos sectores, porque ven que se está tomando con profesionalismo y con seriedad el tema de la ciberseguridad, y hemos tenido buenos resultados. De hecho, estamos por firmar el convenio ya con la Asociación de Bancos de México. Hemos firmado convenios con algunos bancos en específico, pero creemos que el firmar con la Asociación de Bancos de México es más importante porque pues abarca a todos los bancos que operan en el país. Entonces nos da mucho resultado el abrirnos, el mostrar también nuestros números, ver cómo estamos atendiendo y cómo le estamos dando seguimiento a cada uno de los casos. Y esto es un tema de crear esos lazos de confianza, porque sabemos que muchos de los sectores son muy celosos en el tema de la ciberseguridad, no quieren aceptar pues que está afectando, ¿verdad?, el tema de la ciberseguridad, porque pues les afecta a su marca, pues les afecta tal vez en los ingresos, en el impacto y en la percepción que van a tener sus clientes. Pero cuando les hacemos saber que esto es un tema que no tiene esos tintes, sino más bien es un tema de atender la problemática de la ciberseguridad y que les va a ayudar a ellos y a nosotros el compartir información, creo que nos está dando resultados. De verdad que yo puedo sugerirles que en sus países sí busquen estas alianzas. En el caso de Microsoft, la verdad, estamos muy agradecidos con ellos, tienen una apertura enorme con nosotros y tienen una facilidad importante en el tema de compartir información. Desde luego, la información que se puede compartir respetando la privacidad. Gracias.
Yes, certainly information sharing is a hot topic these days here in Washington as the U.S. government continues to debate what it's going to do in that space. And certainly the dimensions between privacy and security are obviously a critical topic as part of that discussion. Focusing back on the public-private partnership aspect, do you have any advice? I wanted to ask the panelists if they had any advice they would give to anyone thinking of creating new public-private partnerships or trying to work with government to address cybersecurity. There's a lot of different partnerships out there today. There's some new ones that are being established. So do you have any advice about how, in that regard?
Creo que todos los miembros del panel estamos 100% de acuerdo que es fundamental el trabajo en conjunto, tanto sector público, privado, académico o sociedad civil, para el manejar los riesgos inherentes al uso de las tecnologías y los aspectos de ciberseguridad. Digamos, creo que eso es un hecho. Y creo que también todos los sectores, desde nuestro corazón, estamos de acuerdo con que queremos aliarnos y cooperar. Sin embargo, luego, a la hora de implementar los acuerdos nos cuesta. Yo hoy inicialmente hablaba de la burocracia que existe, no solo en los gobiernos, que quizás somos los inventores de la burocracia, también en el sector privado existe cierta burocracia, que no nos permite, más allá de nuestros corazones que queremos trabajar en cooperación, no nos permite aliarnos y efectivamente materializar y ejecutar nuestras alianzas. Particularmente en lo que respecta a Uruguay y en lo que respecta a mi posición, yo soy una persona que creo mucho en los resultados, independiente de la burocracia que fuera necesaria para conseguirlos. Y así como con algunas empresas hemos hecho acuerdos de cooperación, cito el ejemplo Microsoft, por ejemplo, con abogados y acuerdos y firmas y etcétera, etcétera, con muchas otras empresas trabajamos con acuerdos de hecho, donde no fue necesaria toda esa burocracia, pero de hecho cooperamos y de hecho trabajamos. Creo que el consejo viene por ese lado, es buscar el resultado más allá del proceso necesario para conseguirlo y olvidarnos de la burocracia, porque creo que todos, públicos, privados, y sociedad civil y academia, todos estamos de acuerdo y coincidimos en que queremos cooperar. Muchas gracias.
As I stated before, I feel that it's a quality of information regarding the evolution of the underground that needs to be shared now. Folks who run large organizations in the region continue to see cybersecurity as an expense or something that inhibits privacy rights. Privacy is impossible without cybersecurity. And the fact that you still see less than 8% of IT budgets dedicated to cybersecurity is tragic. And some people would say that the environment deserves a manifestation due to the lack of investment. I think one paradigm shift that needs to occur besides the quality of information is the concept of brand protection. As Oliver stated, brand protection now needs to become the construct of cybersecurity. If you look at what a chief marketing officer does for a major organization or the head of public affairs, they use the internet to espouse a message or to improve a brand's presence. And they expand the attack surface as they do it by building out the blog and adding the new website and the mobile app and then the email campaign. I think actually a percentage of the marketing or public affairs budget should go to brand protection. I think greater education through public-private partnerships on how to empower the sustainable environment, how to make this a sustainability issue is necessitated, but otherwise I think it's the type of information we share, specifically the constructs of bulletproof hosts, where they exist, how to sinkhole them, how to avoid them.
Maybe there's a component of education and awareness that goes not necessarily just to consumer side, but to businesses about things they ought to be. It's kind of what you're driving at, right? Like,
that is what I'm driving at.
Yeah, like the C level on down, and the CSOs and other folks in companies that the kind of things they should be looking for is an aspect of awareness, I think, as well, that we don't talk enough about. We focus a lot on the consumer angle, but there is the internal employee, who at the end of the day, like in a company like mine with 200,000+ employees, the end user is always the weakest link in some regards. So that's another aspect of it, is how do we drive awareness inside the firm, and how can the government and the private sector partner in that aspect as well?
Híjole, hay demasiados temas importantes en esta materia, pero sin duda debemos de reconocer que el eslabón más débil en el tema de la ciberseguridad es el usuario. Yo creo que debemos de implementar campañas que concienticen a los usuarios, a los ciudadanos en el buen uso de las tecnologías de la información. Estábamos en un tema de forense, aquí al lado el tema del análisis de malware en el banco y todo, y alguien comentaba que desde el punto de vista tecnológico, el hecho de aplicar parches o hacer cambio de contraseñas, digamos, las medidas básicas que debe hacer un administrador de la seguridad de la información, reduce importantemente los riesgos de un ataque cibernético. Y yo me permití agregar que también con difusión de información, de informar y dar información al usuario, al ciudadano, se puede reducir otro tanto más. Muchos de los ataques cibernéticos que se ven por todo el mundo, y no es excepción en México, tiene que ver con ataques muy sencillos, ataques muy básicos, que nosotros nos preguntamos, ¿y cómo fue que esta persona cayó? ¿No? Pero bueno, hace falta cultura, hace falta información, concientización. Entonces yo creo que debemos de hacer uso de los propios medios tecnológicos para difundir esa información. Realmente no se requiere inversiones enormes para poder difundir información. No nada más pensemos en inversión de tecnología, también pensemos en crear contenido para difundir a la ciudadanía de lo importante que es el buen uso de las tecnologías de la información. Y también quiero comentar que otro aspecto importante es la generación de estadísticas. Realmente no hay estadísticas formales en temas de ciberseguridad. Pues hay varios estudios importantes. Estaba yo leyendo un estudio de la ITU, de la Unión Internacional de Telecomunicaciones, y vi aspectos ahí muy relevantes. Por ejemplo, decían que en Alemania la ciberseguridad representa el 1.6% del Producto Interno Bruto. Entonces, 1.6% es impresionante, es un tema realmente alarmante. Veía que en ese mismo estudio que en Estados Unidos representa el 0.64% del Producto Interno Bruto y en Brasil el 0.36%. Estos son datos interesantes, son datos estadísticos que vale la pena comentar aquí, porque esos a los tomadores de decisiones pues realmente les interesa. Es un poquito de lo que hablaba yo al principio, hay que hablar el lenguaje de cada uno de los actores, de los responsables de diferentes sectores, para que pues les lleguemos, ¿verdad?, a lo que ellos manejan y que ellos tomen conciencia de lo importante que es el tema de la ciberseguridad. Entonces yo creo que otro factor importante es el tema de las estadísticas. Hay que generar estadísticas pues para que podamos implementar políticas públicas adecuadas.
Thank you. I think on the topic of statistics, I mean, cybersecurity, and we've tried for many years to come up with good statistics on security. I know Trend has done many reports that are very interesting, and others. So it's been an ongoing topic of discussion. It's a big challenge because of the nature of security, because it's so distributed and widespread, and it's hard to pin down necessarily. But I do agree with you that the better data that we have certainly makes for more informed decisions. To the extent we could make them. We have about 3 minutes left, so we're about ready to wrap up. I wanted to ask, are there any questions from the audience at all that you'd like to ask?
Yes, Harry Noble from Belize Police. La pregunta la voy a hacer en español porque se refiere a los presidentes de México y Consejo de Uruguay. El señor Uruguay hicieron que usaron los programas de Stop Team Connect. Pero México como que desarrolló su propio programa para eso, ¿o usó el del Stop Team Connect?
No, estamos desarrollando contenido y estamos utilizando los mecanismos de difusión que tenemos en nuestro país. Uno de ellos es el utilizar los tiempos oficiales de radio y televisión, que eso es un tema importante. Todos los países tienen medios oficiales que no le cuestan nada, solo es cuestión de subir el tema de radio y televisión, el tema de hacer uso de las páginas oficiales del gobierno, desde luego las redes sociales también del gobierno para difundir esa información, y también hacer proximidad, o sea, acercarnos. Nosotros, como estamos en una institución de seguridad pública, desde luego el tema de la proximidad social es clave, porque crea, pues, genera ese lazo, ¿verdad?, de confianza con el ciudadano, y por eso es que asistimos a través de un programa implementado en nuestro gobierno que se llama Un Día con tu Policía Federal, y es que asistimos a cada una de las ciudades a dar estas pláticas y estos acercamientos.
La otra pregunta es concerniente a algo de las estadísticas para concientización. Por ejemplo, nosotros en Belice nos dimos cuenta que el crimen reportado está en 66% en general, pero a lo cibernético estimamos que está muy por debajo de eso, porque lo comparamos con la violencia doméstica, que anda en 10%. Entonces creemos que el crimen estadístico anda debajo del 10%. Y la otra cosa que encontramos que eventos, incidentes que afectan lo tecnológico, crímenes afectando computadoras, smartphones, tablets, teléfono y uso de esta tecnología para cometer crimen, solo representa como el 3% del volumen del crimen. Entonces dice, es muy pequeño para hacerle caso, pero vimos más a fondo esto y nos dimos cuenta que en general, en crimen general en total, lo que afecta monetariamente es 14%, o sea que todo el crimen común, todo que hay, el 14% concierne dinero financiero. En cambio, en ese poco 3% de lo cibernético, encontramos que 78% de estos incidentes involucraban dinero, pérdida de dinero. Entonces, aunque la cantidad es poca, pero el impacto financiero encontramos que es algo bien fuerte, ¿no? Es algo que tratamos de usar para poder convencer a nuestra gente a hacer un CISER, que estamos trabajando con la OEA ahorita para hacer esto.
Sí, si me permiten, en este mismo estudio que les recomiendo que lo lean de la UIT, hablan de cifras de 375,000 millones de dólares a 575,000 millones de dólares que dejó el cibercrimen o que generó el cibercrimen en 2014. De hecho, por ahí muchos de los especialistas dicen que el tema ya superó al narcotráfico, por lo menos en el tema de la marihuana. Entonces, realmente es mucho más de lo que podemos percibir, creo yo.
Yeah, I think you touched on the disproportionality of cybersecurity attacks, right? Because one individual or a few individuals can actually have a massive impact in the cybersecurity world as opposed to maybe traditional crime. I think that's one of the challenges that we have is in that area. I think we're out of time, so I wanted to thank my panelists for coming today and for the questions from the audience, and hopefully this was informative about the role of public-private partnerships on behalf of AT&T and also NCSA as being on their board. Thank you very much for having me, and have a good afternoon.
And thank you very much, panelists and moderator, for this session. A lot of information has been shared, I'm sure. Food for thought as we go along with the program. Just a couple of announcements. There's a short break. We get back at 11:05, please. And I've been informed, actually I've been asked to reassure everyone that you may not see it on the program, but lunch will be served. Yeah, I knew that would make you happy. So the President of Estonia will be here at 12, so we get back at 11:02 so we can get that next panel going and move on from there. Thank you.